Welcome to The Best Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Bradley H. Werrell, and we're here to explore options and potentials to help us grow as individuals and as a community with one another in these difficult times and challenging times. We're exploring all manner of potentials related to the human experience, physical, psychological, medical, spiritual. It's a wonderful opportunity that we now experience in this critical phase of our human evolution. And I welcome you to join us in our podcast, become more aware, and identify with people who are helpful and supportive of you in your efforts as a human being on this planet and elsewhere too. We're going to be meeting people who are doing things that are widely variant from what is so-called normal within our society, in the creative space, within the social space. Our common purpose, seeking to generate positive potentials to improve the lives of everyone in our sphere of influence, and to expand that sphere of influence so that we may positively influence others that are not yet engaged directly with us. That's the goal here. We will learn more about each other as we go. I wish you the very best. Thank you very much for tuning in. So, Ryan, I understand you're an acupuncturist.
That is true.
And interested in holistic healing. I like that.
Well, it's a good field to be in at the moment. I mean, I think it's one of those fields where, as you know, holistic healing is a valuable tool, but it's also becoming much more widely accepted through the mainstream population. And it's one of those things that, as that happens, we have to adapt and adjust and figure out, okay, what are the things that we need to focus on now? But the beautiful thing, of course, is that we have, as I like to say, we have a very high ceiling and a very low floor, meaning...
Hey, what's that mean, man?
Well, it means like the amount of damage that we can do is not very high.
That's good.
The worst thing that can happen is that you don't get as good of a result as you want. But the best thing that can happen is that you're completely shocked at how well you're responding. And so that's a high ceiling with a low floor.
I see that. It's a high upside potential, low downside potential. I like that.
You got it. You got it.
That's very interesting because medicine is largely about poisoning, like appropriately poisoning, not too much, just enough, however, and not too little. It's like it's got some significant downsides. It's huge. What's interesting about it in with regard to my profession, I'm an osteopathic physician, is that the institutions that are valuable to the elite tend to be occupied by the elite and employed for such purposes as are interesting to the elite. And it's like, okay, and it's like you're squeezing around the edges, man. You're like grabbing a handful of mud and you're the guy squeezing out between. it's like that's the way to be, man. It's like I was pondering this today because I was like, I'm a family practice guy, so primary care, and the common mythos is there's not enough doctors, and it's like, yeah, then how come I'm not busier?
Right.
You know, and I'm like, and how come they keep increasing the workload on me that is not productive, which is administrative overburden? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, I don't like, there's other games afoot here. That's what's going on. And I'm liking the holistic game is kind of like this. Is like, I was just talking to a friend of mine who's a judge, and he said, read this book, Atomic Habits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's like all the little habits that you put in around you that make you be more productive and more effective and less unhealthy and more expressive of positive energy, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that and those are things that we want to trickle into the mainstream mentality, and those are not things that we typically get through the current medical paradigm that we're in the midst of. As you said, there's a certain degree of the extreme elite only catering to the extreme elite, and what does that mean? And so as an osteopathic physician, do you find that you have a little more flexibility because of the different, the additional training that you had? Are you able to use that, or once you're in the primary care setting?
No, there's an interesting story. I was telling this story earlier, which is there's a fellow I know that's a chiropractor, and he was sufficiently burned by his licensing board that he's a chiropractor who no longer diagnoses and treats particular illnesses. Okay, so now he's able to do whatever he wants, and he helps people, and he gets paid cash only. He's not interested in getting the insurance company money. So it's like this. It's like the system, right? The evil system that is operated by the elites is they bribe the doctors to do things that are just they don't want to do. You just pay them extra money and they'll do it. But the issue is I look at my town and it's like there's not enough primary care doctors, and it's like the left out of that is this thing which is at this price, right? Now people want what they're not paying for,
right?
Or they think they're paying for it, and it's like the cure for all this is you pay for what you get, okay, and it's going to cost more than you think is. It's like, how much do you value your health, right?
Right. Well, and truth be told, if most people, I'm sure you see this in your practice too. Let me know what I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But most people that we see at this point, their deductible has been finagled so much, and their out-of-pocket has been finagled so much that by the time they add up their premium, their deductible, and what they're actually having to contribute that's getting paid for, you have to wonder if they wouldn't just be better off spending that same $5,000-$6,000 a year on exactly what they were looking for,
Yeah, it's like this. So my business partner was talking to me, and his dad was a union guy. He worked in a auto plants in Ohio, and it's like this. So there was a thing many years ago. The union was trying to get dental coverage for the employees in the union. And so he never was too politically oriented, but he's like this. He stood up in front of him and said, look, in 5 years, your deductible will be as much as you're paying now, and then it will go up. Yeah. So it's going to cost you to do this to get the free dental. And it's like, and damn if he wasn't right, like being right on the money.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like that. So it's like the issue is it's capture. It's like it's capture of your mind and capture of your will to get you involved in the system, and then also to strip you of your resources so you don't have any alternatives, right?
Right, for sure. And then you don't know what the other alternatives are, even to the point where something like what we do on the acupuncture and on the nutritional supplement side is in some circles it's vilified, right? So it's changing quite a bit. I mean, I have to say I'm really very encouraged actually by, at least locally, the number of physicians that are referring to us now that it used to be that we would never get the time of day from. But it's still, as far as the mainstream conversations going on this, it's very much a bottom-up conversation. It's very much coming only because patients are actually telling their doctors and telling their
right.
that
they're getting the results
from this. Exactly right. Yeah,
man. So I started training CrossFit about 15 months ago. Okay.
Oh, wow.
No. So my patient comes in and he's like, it's a CrossFit coach. And I said, I'd say interesting. I was talking to him about some stuff, and I've been doing this online work, and I was doing squats in between. And I say, it took me, I don't know how long, a year to figure out how to do a squat properly. He goes, do a squat. So his wife and him are both in there. They're the coaches, and they watched me do a squat or two. I don't remember, but it's like, and then I started training with him as a personal coach. He's 71. Wow. And it's like, but I'm like, okay, so I start training with him. I've been doing it a year and a quarter. And it's like, I've been working on my back. I've got back issues. And it's like, I've been working on me since 1987. Okay. And it's like that. In the year that I've been working with them, I advanced so much faster in all dimensions than I could have anticipated. And it's like, because now I'm coachable. That's useful. Right. And it's like, Well, that sounds stupid. But it's like I saw the pain. It's like a little wince. It's like, yeah, man, I deserve that. I earned it, right? It's just hard heads, right? And it's like, but it's like the issue is this is positive attitude. Do the thing. Do something, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Action
like
is the most important. Action is definitely the most important.
the other issue is this is it you don't have money because you're spending it on these other things, and it's like, yeah, it's not expensive.
Right.
It looks expensive when you're just sticker shock, right? And that's like, look, man, how much is your health worth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, it's an age-old conversation within the holistic world because, you know, not only do you have patients coming in looking at that from a sticker shock standpoint, but you also, there's another kind of component of this, which is that many people in the holistic world have kind of I say this with as much love as I can in my heart, have like a Mother Teresa syndrome, you know what I mean? Where they're, and obviously Mother Teresa did incredible work, but also, wouldn't take money and was doing, and there's a component where as a holistic healer, you have a sense that if you are successful, then something is wrong. That if you are, if you're actually earning a good living, then something is wrong. And so you don't want people to pay too much. You don't want to spend too much. And so there's a lot of burnout in the holistic world because you have to fight the system that is, paying out of pocket for physical, for your surgery, for, the majority of your medication. But then when you go to do something natural, now we have to convince you, quote unquote, to do it, out of pocket, or self-pay.
That's right.
And so, so there's a lot of burnout because you have this combination of it being against the current paradigm. The patients, look at that as a problem. And now you also have practitioners that have kind of an aversion to making money, and so it's a terrible combination.
But is it interesting? Like one of the fellows I was just talking to, he was talking about artists, and artists are like they kind of opt out of the system. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's like, and then they bitch about it because it's like they're not earning the money, and it's like, okay, and it's like this. I can see it being double burn because it's like you're catching it from both sides in that holistic business. But you got to allow yourself to be successful if you want. I mean, that will make it encourages you when people pay you to do your job.
Absolutely. And the thing that we did at our office was we decided to create a hybrid where we accept health insurance to the best of our ability. We manage those claims. Not every plan has them. Not every plan, but we also take self-pay for patients that don't. And we've created a system where, based on it's just a weird in between because the reimbursement rate for what we do is basically the same as what our self-pay rate is. So it's one of the only fields in medicine where you can create a hybrid, which is actually beneficial. It's not beneficial from the standpoint of our reimbursement rate really stinks compared to a lot of other medical professions. Okay. But it is beneficial in that we can basically serve everyone. We just have to choose. We have to make sure that we have a system for how to do that. And with our intention is to mainstream holistic medicine to as much of a degree as we possibly can, at least in the region. And so,
wait, what's the region?
So we're in the Mid-Atlantic. So I'm in Maryland, and right now we have expanded into Western Maryland as well. And so we are just looking at local, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia. This is kind of the region that I'm referring to. The four what do they call it? The four corners meet in those four states. And so
cool.
Yeah, so that's where we are.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So the issue is like this is like it's just a pickle. It's like I think it's like a psychological conflict that's largely part of it, which is like it's like really it doesn't take much to improve your well-being. If you just got to get this straight a little bit, and then you can get on the right pathway. And it's like, but there's so many forces that are working against the public for the purpose of exploiting the public. That's what it is. Because it's like, look, I figured this out. Like, so I did ketogenic diet since 2015, okay, or something like that. And it's like, the the interesting function is that diabetes type 2 is largely a voluntary disease. And it's like, it's $150 billion a year industry. So it's like, don't upset that apple cart, doctor. That will be bad, because you're costing a whole bunch of somebody some money, and it's like, wow, wow, and it's like just bad education, and the doctors are complicit because they're not trained properly in some regards. They're not trained on it. It's interesting. My associate, he did research because his dad was having some like Alzheimer's like issues, right? And he's doing the research, and he's like, to get the metabolic processes by which fat is burned is almost impossible out of the textbooks, because it's just scattered to the wind. It's not consolidated and systematically gone through like the carbohydrate metabolism is very understood and very highly taught, right? Because that's how we get energy. And it's like, well, that is how we get energy, but we can also do it the other way here and the other way here, and it's like not discussed. I'm like, wow. And I regard it as evil to be factual, you know what it is, because it's like, it's malicious utilization of people in a way that is unethical.
Right. Well, and then it becomes a social construct as well. So we have, your family and your friends that have bought into kind of the mainstream paradigm as well. And now you have that force. So you're not even supported if you go to look elsewhere, because it's strange. I can't tell you how many patients we've had where they've said, my family thinks I'm crazy for coming here. And I'm like, why? We're just putting a few needles in you and giving you a couple supplements,
That's it. What we call that normative bias, right? And it's like, so the Marxists are good at fighting this. They just change the meaning of words and do such things as that, right?
Right.
It's like, so it's like, maybe we need to adapt some kind of structural plan, you know what I mean? Like systematically, because it's like, dude, the humans are getting their butt kicked, right?
Yeah.
I did not cuss there, man. That was me working. You saw it, man. You saw me work. It's like, that's like, it's all good, man.
So tell me what so in your ideal world, what would this look like? How would we restructure, and what would it look like? All things considered, and then maybe how do we get there? Because I'm curious about from your perspective and your background, and knowing that you can see both sides of it. What solutions have come, to your mind in looking at the process?
Well, it looks to me like it's like you gotta be utterly rebellious. Okay. And it's like, okay, what's that mean? It's like, you don't be the go along, get along guy, because it's like, that doesn't work, because it's like the stream will drag you to the place you don't want to go, because you don't want people going there. And so it's like bucking the trend, and be willing to do the work and accept the costs and responsibilities is huge. But the issue is it looks to me like it's education. And we gotta get the youth and make them be active and teach them properly, which the schools are sadly remiss in, and they seem to be interested in other ends, which are not in the best interest of any individual student at all. None, not one. It's like, but in the aggregate, they're all going to be just nonsense. Just means nothing to me. And I'm like, so it's like we have to presume that everything is broken and we have to fix it all right now. And that's our goal. And we work together with each other that are properly aligned and oriented with the well-being of the individual that's in front of us. That's our patient, or whatever you want to call them, which is our fellow human being, right? Sure. And try to meet our responsibilities in a professional sense. And I don't trust the professional societies whatsoever either, which is like this. I regard them as captured entities that are designed to use the tool on me. Which is, it goes like this. I tell this story. I'll tell you this story. This was for public record, so this is more interesting because I get to tell this story. I've been telling my patients this story. It goes like this. I used to consider the computer a tool which I used to do my professional activities. Okay. And later on, it became a yoke through which many interested parties whom I have never met now tool on me and the patient right? And I merely use this as the information source for all those agencies, right? And then I discovered this one. The yoke does not have to, no, the ox does not have to like the yoke. And it's like, okay. Then I tell my business partners, say, we work for the hospital. We sold out a couple of years ago because they paid the hospital 3.5 times what they pay me to do the same job in the same clinic with the same patients. How about that? Never could have even begun to expect that because I thought it was really more like a marketplace. It's a command economy.
Yeah. Wow.
And so the issue is it's a gilded cage, right? That's all. And so it's like they make us do stupid stuff that doesn't make any sense. It's never going to make sense. It's never going to try to make sense. Or don't try to make it make sense. You'll hurt yourself. Okay. What you try to do is align yourself with people that make sense and refer to people who make sense. So we send a lot of referrals to people to that CrossFit gym because they fix people and make them like they've got 86-year-old people that can't get off the floor. All they want to do is to be able to get up if they fall down. And it's like that. And they're crying because they can do it now, right? And fast. And it's like, you get it? It's just like, what do we do? Who do we send them to? Who's making sense? I just had a conversation with my, so the judge and his daughter. His daughter's been working as a, she's a teenager, working as a veterinarian assistant, right? So she has no credentials. She's still in high school. And so she's noting that veterinarians do too much euthanasia of animals. So she doesn't like that. Right. So she got interested in, get this craziness, right? Horse chiropractic.
Oh,
like,
wow. Yeah.
Wait, what? I like, so osteopathic, we do that stuff on humans, but it's like, man, how are you going to do a lever on a horse? Just, so I'm like this, I kind of like this, and I'm going to ask you this question here in a minute, but it's like, I said, she said to be a horse chiropractor, I gave her an assignment. I said, go tell me how you become a horse chiropractor, right? And so she said, you got to become a vet and then you can do the thing, right? And I'm like, I think that there's a way to do this without entering the professions per se. If you can do what you say you're going to do and deliver, the people will find you because they'll chatter, right? So doing what you do, what do you tell a youth who's interested in what you do? For what, how do I do it, right?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, one thing that I'm always a little cautious of when it comes to that is saying to someone, all right, if you can crack somebody's back really well, but you don't have a license, you're still going to be busy, which is true. But at some point, it's going to bite you in the backside. It's kind of like, why do we go to get an undergraduate degree? It's not because we, learn that much in undergraduate school. Most of the time.
Oh my God. This is called damnation through faint praise. I appreciate it. You're on track, man. Sorry to have interrupted you. I had to say it.
No worries. But I speak to other acupuncturists almost every week about how much more we learn, not only on the job, but also with continuing education after our formal education because of what we're interested in. So what I typically tell young people who are interested in getting into the field is you have to go through the foundational program, not because it makes the most sense, but because it's going to give you a baseline and it's going to give you a piece of paper that says you have the right to go forward. And so is that the most efficient way to evolve as healers in our society? No, but it is, I think, necessary. Then what I tell them is, then after you get that piece of paper, you go and study everything that you've really wanted to do. And then you put it out there and you have something behind it. And not only do you have the skill now, but you also have what is in the mainstream's eyes as a worthiness to produce that particular skill. If there were no acupuncture degrees, then acupuncture would not have the level of adoption that it does today, which is still only 10% of the American population has tried it. But that was much less 25 years ago. Right. Much less. It was 2 to 3% 25 years ago. So there's been a big influx from that point of view. And I can't help but to concede that we do need to have some sort of system in place to gauge, it's like I heard somebody say the other day, if construction workers had no regulations, if contractors had no regulations, think about how terrible, like buildings would be falling down all over the place. It's not, not because, it's because everyone's going to cut corners when they have the opportunity to. There's, it's going to be harder. You have to have some regulation in place. So, I think the same is true. I just think that we have to recognize what the relative value is of the different levels of education that we get, and when we need to go out and really learn something that may be a little fringe, even for the profession that you're in. But now that you have that, now that you've spent all those years getting the, checking all your boxes, you have now a lot more behind the, and the right to go out and do something like, craniosacral therapy, because you're also a chiropractor or you're also an acupuncturist. And that's not to take anything away from a craniosacral, that's all you do. It's just to say that in most people's eyes, you can't possibly have the breadth of understanding and knowledge by taking 4 weekends of craniosacral.
Oh yeah, no
what I'm saying?
No question about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no question about that. It is an interesting thing, because I studied massage therapy before I went to medical school. And it was at that time the massage therapists were organizing their professional organizations, and I regard it as a pestilence. Okay.
Definitely, in a lot of ways.
And I'm like, okay, so yeah, I don't know that it's avoidable. I think you're right, largely, and it's like, the issue is at this moment is the educational costs and commitments, that are required to do that. It's like the credentialing process is excessive, in my opinion.
For sure.
It's like, what does that mean? It's like, well, and I also regard it as captured. Okay. So like, this is like the issue is this is trying to, this moment in time is so uncertain, right? It's like the uncertainty level is so high right now. It's like, shoot, man, the last 2 years, is this year and last year, is just like hell on wheels, right? And it's like try to plan what you're going to do for the next 4 years, and good luck thinking about that beyond like 3 months time frame. It's like, I can pretty much predict what's going to happen in the next 90 days. I think I'm not going to get that too wrong, but after that, I'm thinking it's just in the fog, man. Right? And I'm like, it's like, I really feel for the youth, because it's like you're stuck and you're trying to organize your stuff and get it into a pattern that makes sense and will be productive and allow you to generate a family or whatever it is you're trying to do. And it's like, it's just tough.
Yeah.
Because of the uncertainty.
Do you think that there could be a time when the schooling, the formal schooling that gives you the credentialing, is more effective? In other words, there's a lot of creative education out there that usually happens on your own outside of the formal program. Why is that? Why is it so limited as to what you can? I mean, most of the physicians that I've spoken to who refer patients to us had zero training in nutrition in medical school. And then you have them, treating diabetics and treating people who have had gastric bypass in the sleeve. And, what's more important to those people, to those patients, than nutrition, but yet there's it's medication and
my assessment of that goes like this: is there's a reason for that.
Do tell.
Okay? Oh, it goes like this: it's like, somebody has much to gain by limiting the education of the physicians in such a manner. And they do limit it intentionally for that purpose. There's no accidents. I don't believe in institutional accidents, because it's like this: you have to regard an institution as a artificial function that is the responsibility of somebody to generate, right? And it's like this: so anything that happens there must be within the design parameters or acceptable limits, tolerable limits, the engineers would say, right? Which is to say, there's slop, So the bolt is a little bit sloppy in its little hole that you're sticking the bolt through, right? But it's like, that's tolerable limits, right? And the engineer engineered it for a purpose, and that purpose is being met. And the fact that you don't like it means you don't understand, that you're misunderstanding what's tolerable. Does that make sense? And it's like, to me, it's intolerable. It's like, whoa, 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 what in the hell are you guys doing? So it's like you're beyond remiss. Like I say, it stretches to evil because you're malicious now. You're being malicious to the population in general by miseducating the doctors for the purpose of generating sick people that generate billions, right? And I'm like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. But so then what you're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that the powers that be behind the educational entities are aligned.
They're captive.
They're captive by the pharmaceutical industry, by the
yeah, that's like it's layers and layers, and it's like you don't know where the elite end. Okay, it's like, okay, it's just like we're staring into some abyss, because the smart elites are never going to be seen. Okay, I can't point a finger at them because you're not going to show your face, because then the pitchfork might follow. Right? So the issue is okay, we're going to talk about television here, right? Television works like this. So television, I like this in my professional career and with my business associates. So the both of us have been in business about the same time. So about in 40 collective years of being a physician, I think I can count on one hand the amount of times people came and talked to us about some drug they saw on television. Okay, so it's not selling drugs. What is the advertising for? Does this make sense?
Yeah.
And my assessment is that it's to provide billions of dollars to the mass media for the purpose of controlling the narrative about my work, so that you don't say something bad about me. Otherwise, you might lose the money. So it's just that I think they say bakshish in some foreign parts about this, which is it's bribery. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I guess where I'm still unclear is where is the link to higher education in that? I'm sure it's there. I'm just
so the medical establishment is professional organizations that are nominally democratic in their makeup, but their governance is largely, the doctors are really like cats, man. They don't like to be herded. Okay. And it's like, but there's always there's people who that want to run for city council, right? And have influence. And it's like, and those people do that, and they're going to do that, and it's unavoidable. But the issue is, you go to a professional medical society meeting, like okay, so we're going to have a convention, and it's like they have the hall that has all the vendors in it, right? Okay, so you go in there and there's little guys, like I did this. I have a little poster that's like, we were selling educational software for osteopathic physicians. And it's like, so we bought a little bitty cubicle like thing that had, you pay extra if you want electricity, right? And it's like, okay, so, okay, and it was fairly expensive, but it's like, then you go, there's a crystal palace filled with silver coffee urns and beautiful blondes that is just talking about something that use drug company, man. It's like this thing, what in the hell? It's like, to even just to construct that thing inside this facility must have cost 10 times what I paid for my little cubicle, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's like this, it's like, there is something going on here that you don't understand quite exactly, doctor.
Sure.
Wait, and they're giving away all kind of crazy nonsense, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, there's something else going on. So those guys have some control of the professional organization by virtue of the same function that they're performing with the mass media, which is they're providing lubricants, which is the liquidity, right?
Yeah.
And so they control the professional organizations by influence. There's influence occurring there, which is like not directly seen, right?
Yeah.
So it's like medical education is controlled by those professional agencies, but those bodies.
Mm-hmm. So how do we bring the spirit of kind of a more integrated oneness approach to a culture that is so primarily focused on the profitability of everything from spirituality to medicine to food? How do we do that?
Right.
Because ultimately, I mean, isn't that
that's
really
an interesting question?
Yeah.
It is. It's like, okay, there's an educational process, right? And that's pretty good, but it's not going to be good enough, I'm pretty sure. Because it's like you're talking against the wind, okay? You know what I mean? It's like the issue is this, and I speak with a gentleman on a regular basis, and I'm helping him with his work, which is scientific in nature. But it's like this, it's like what we're aligned against is a industrial lying machine. So it's like this. So it's like the issue is kind of like if you look at like say the evolution of Western civilization. So we were like making farms and doing farm things, and it's like really there's no industrial lying machine. Okay, it's just like you have normative behavior. We just behave normally, and we within a moral framework, and we get along, and it's okay. But it's like once you do the industrialization, and it's like the industrialization, and then it's like, and then the mass media was developed in the 20th century, and the mass media was employed by these industrialized lying devices. And so it's really hard to, when people are being bombarded by lies, it's like you tell a really big lie and it has legs, right? And so it's like, it's hard to, how do you fight with a really big lie and a big machine that justifies the lie, and everybody knows it and it's common sense, and that's the normative function. Now you have to make it illegal to lie.
Yeah.
That's the issue right there. And so that's what we're working on with making it illegal to lie, which is like you have to be able to identify all lies, right?
Or you have to have enough people that recognize a higher truth in order, in the same way that we were talking before about why did acupuncture get popular? It wasn't because the insurance companies decided that they wanted to just pay for this. It was because they had so many people that said, this is working for me, this is working for me, this is working for me. Now we're testing it scientifically. We're seeing how it affects the brain in functional MRIs, et cetera, et cetera. And so we see that now we have proof of concept, where this is kind of what we're talking about is, a theoretical entry of, or I don't know, you could say return, or you could say, expanse into a different way of thinking about value and what's valuable to the individual, to the collective, so that it's not only measured on profitability, financial success, et cetera, but it's also measured in other ways that just aren't as clear and aren't as easy to measure, because they're more about internal joy or internal, connection or something of that nature. You know what I mean?
That will be the psychologists would talk about this as qualia, right? The qualitative functions.
Yeah.
What you're looking at, and it's like I understand what you're saying. So this is a big thing, because it is what is measured is able to be improved upon.
Yeah.
And
which is the history of Western science, right? I mean, it's why it's so successful, but it's also why it's so limited.
Well, there's an interesting function. It's like I'm trying to process this. That was a hard one, man. That was a good one. That's requiring extra gigabytes, and that my RAM is being overwhelmed. It's like it's just like
okay. No, I mean, I don't want to get too esoteric. I'm not trying to get too esoteric. I'm just trying to get to the heart of what we're talking about, which is how do we improve medicine? Really, how do we improve health? How do we help people to get to that?
No, I know. And I'm with you. And it's like, see, when I'm one of the elements of the difficulties that I'm processing is this. So this like you got to recognize this: insurance companies are trying to. That's the beginning of the capture of your profession, right?
Yeah,
that's what I sense there, and I'm like, okay, that's because it's like this. They're reeling you in, okay?
Yeah.
And it's like then they'll overpay you. so that you will keep your mouth shut and then don't, and won't go free again. And it's like, that's kind of what I think. And it's like, okay, that's one thing. But I think it is you have to maintain your it's professional or yeah, I should say that's fair. It's your ethics. Is you have to be ethically right.
Yeah.
And you have to try to teach the people and earnestly work in the best interest of your patient, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I see this, and I hear patients, they come talk to me and my associate, they're like, oh, we come back to you because you listen to us. I'm like, the hell are the other doctors doing? I'm like, I mean, really? That seems like a low bar. And that's like, I don't know. I really look, I like my patients. I want them to do well and I want to help them. And they're, it's like this funny thing. You like bump against people that they don't want to hear it. Okay. You're going to give them the best advice you got and they're just not interested. Right. And you don't fault them for that. That's okay. Right. It's like they're not ready for it. It's okay. And you don't keep on pouring water on the rock because it's not going to ever accept the water.
Oh yeah, you're so right. I can so relate to this, because there's so many people that come in with an intention to get better. That you can see that beneath all of the difficulty, there is this spark of wanting to be healthy. But the reality of the work that it takes is so far from that acceptance that it's almost like there's a split in the personality between the part that wants to do it and then the part that isn't recognizing how much work it takes to actually get there from where you currently are, and
there's issue. I call this issue demoralization. Okay. Just like this, it's like I want to be better, but I'm such a mess and it's so much work and it's going to cost so much and take so long, and I can't even imagine me ever getting out of the hole that I find myself in, right? And so it's like the issue is this is try to make it bite-sized, right? Yeah. Try to make it bite-sized and small enough that they can accept it and just keep chipping, right? Yeah. And it's like just chip away, and it's like you recognizing these, and this is the atomic habits thing, right? So it's like this. It's like in the work that I'm working on is stable equilibrium. So you think of your, I know, I'm sure you talk about it in your profession, habitus.
Tell me about that. I'm not sure.
So habitus will be this: it's the sum collection of the way you carry yourself. So your posture will be included, the clothes you wear, and the environment you find yourself in, the company you keep is all your habitus. It's what your habitat, right? Which is what you inhabit, all of you. And it's like, so this is a stable equilibrium. The way you are is a stable equilibrium. And it's like meta-stable, like it will change in time, but it's like, it's generally stable. And it's substantiated by thoughts, like opinions and prejudices and biases. And this is what makes the world that you live in. And it's like, to cause the people to understand the power of this, that rules all of this, is the beginning of it, I think. Because it's like, I always do this with the CrossFit coach. CrossFit coach he's 71, and he's like, okay, look, I'm doing something like burpees or something, just awful thing, too many of them, too fast, and he's like, come on now. And he says, ignore the signals coming from your body. And I'm like, whoa, full stop. What? That is like the opposite of the way that I've been working for 50 years, 55 years. And I'm like, well, shit. That hasn't served me too well because I'm here now and I suck at doing burpees apparently, right? And so I'm like, so I process that a little bit, and it's like this, it's like, it's not the signal that you ignore, because it's all signals, it's all information moving around, because the way you feel is just information, right? And it's like, it's the opinion that you form and listen to that informs your behavior. Yeah. Right? So it's like, so you don't listen to your opinion, which is like, Jesus, I should stop doing this right now, because that will be so much better than doing another 5 more burpees this time and then doing it again in 2 minutes or whatever we're doing, right? And it's like, once I accepted that it's opinions, then it's like, it's just an opinion and you can change your opinion, right? And then you accept this discomfort or whatever you call this feeling. You change the way you understand the feeling.
It's so true. And this realization is so underutilized and undervalued when it comes not just to health, but to every aspect of life. I mean, really, I had a meditation teacher for a number of years that, and meditation is a good example of this. People think that when you meditate, you're going to sit down and immediately your mind is going to go blank, right? That's the perception of the general public. That's what I hear it every day in the treatment room. I can't meditate because I just can't shut my mind off. Well, that's not really the point. The point is actually to face your mind, to actually sit there and not have to, and to sit there no matter what it's telling you. This doesn't feel good. I don't like sitting in this position anymore. Why am I thinking of that again? Right? And to be able to do just what your CrossFit coach said, which is to just not pay attention to what your mind is telling you. In your case, it was the body. In this case, it's the mind. Because when you can do that, then in moments when your mind is on high alert and your sympathetic nervous system is overactive, you can choose not to pay attention to it. But you have to work that muscle. You have to actually train that muscle in order to build up the capacity to keep doing those burpees when your body is telling you, no, this is done, I'm done, this doesn't feel good anymore. Or to keep sitting when your mind is telling you, this is stupid, why are you sitting still? I'm just going to keep thinking. And you know what I mean? It's like you're building up a certain capacity. I guess it's a discipline, really. It's
yes, discipline is a good word. Good word. So it is. It's a this is a function. I have studied people for many years now, and I'll tell you a story about myself, and that leads into that segues to the thing I'm going to talk about patients in a more general sense, which is I moved to this country that I'm living in a rural town that's it's 10,000 people. I live down a country road, and it's like we got two things on this road that don't combine well. Okay, one, we have people that drive a little bit fast sometimes, and we have a lot of bunnies. Okay, and it's like the problem is sometimes that mixes in a bad fatal way for the bunny, and so it was upsetting me, man. I'm like a very sensitive soul, right? And it's like the bunny, see the squished bunny, he's an innocent guy, and he doesn't move fast enough for the infernal industrial society with these machines that move too quickly for him to process it and get out of the way. And so I'm like, this is bothering me for 20 damn minutes. And I'm like, this is getting way out of hand. I'm like, Jesus, what do I do? God help me. Okay. And so what I did was I spontaneously, every time I saw the dead bunny, I say the Lord's Prayer. Okay. And it stopped bothering me like fast. And I'm like, so I started prescribing this to my anxious patients because I'm like, this is out of control. Yeah. And it's kicking you, and you're letting it kick you because you're in the habit of letting it kick you, and you don't know how to stop it from kicking you.
Right.
And so it's like this is like the Hindus talk about the mind like it's a horse for 5,000 years. And it's like this. If you follow the horse or try to chase the horse, you're going to get tired and dirty, and that's anxiety. Right? So I'm like this. The trick is, how do you tame the horse? Because you should be riding the horse. Cowboys ride horses, never the other way around, right? So you train the horse in a round pen, right?
Yeah. Have
you ever seen the round pen that they train horses in? So we'll say it for the audience, okay? So the number one goal of the cowboy when he's going to train the horse is to establish the intention of dominating the behavior of the horse with his will. He puts a long rope on the nose of the horse and the bridle, and then he carries this little whip thing around so he can smack the horse's butt. As the horse is running around the outside of the circle, and the cowboy's in the middle making tiny little circles. And then he can cross the midline, and then he's in front of the horse. The horse is like, wow, that guy's fast. He's in front of me. I'm turning around, right? So the horse is doing this, and he's changing directions and being controlled by the cowboy's will. And then when the cowboy's done, he lets the horse go again. So this is what the Lord's Prayer is. It's the round pen for the mind. So it causes you to discipline your mind under your willful direction for some finite period. And I say the same things to people because it's like this, because there's an anti-religious bias we have in our society, which is Mary had a little lamb might work. It may not be long enough. It may not be complex enough. We don't know. It has not been tested. It will not be tested because it will be unethical to test it because we have one that works. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I tell them this. I say, look, The only reason we're having this conversation is because you need more practice.
Mm.
And then give it some time and just practice. Because the hardest thing, you think you're thinking, but you're just being abused by your thoughts.
Yeah. Very. Look, it's one of the things that, is probably above all else when it comes to healthcare. I think the number one thing that we can admit and appreciate and actually, work on above all else is being able to start with not letting your mind control your decision making. Because how many times have you heard, well, I don't drink water because I don't like the taste of it. I don't, right? I don't eat vegetables because I just can't find ones that I like. I just, and it's like, it's all these things that come up and you go like, who's making that? Where did that sentence even come from? That you couldn't say, I don't really like broccoli, but I eat it anyway because I know it's good for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, why can't we just change the narrative and
That's
do
it.
it in your head? And
That's
then
it.
boom,
That's right. So I call this self-hypnosis, okay?
Yeah.
So it's like this. So the patient says, I can't do that. I'm like, well, if you say so, right? I'm like, okay, well, because I'm not going to argue with someone. You're nuts, man. You're out of your mind. It's like this. It's like, I said this to one patient one time. That's like they're saying, I'm talking to them and then they're like, well, they contradict me and do this thing. And I'm like, well, do you know it's really rude to do self-hypnosis when I'm hypnotizing you?
Mm.
Right? And so and I use this interruption and confusion kind of techniques. It's like you just say something obtuse and cause them to think about it, to stop in their tracks and go, why was I thinking that? Right?
Mm.
And it's like, I think that if we train, so it's like, yes, where's the leverage, right? As a practitioner trying to help people, where's the leverage? It's like, get them to understand how their mind works.
Mm.
Because you go like this, it's like, the body is a slower mechanism. This thing operates super fast, and it's like it regulates all of it.
Yeah.
And so if we train people how to process information cognitively, then they're to slow down and think about what they're doing, right? And then, is that what I want? Will that achieve the goal that I want? And what do I want? You know what I mean? It's like that I think is where our leverage is.
Definitely. No, it's beautiful. Well said.
It is the trick is like this. It's like, okay, so how do we develop institutions? Because you're making a business. I've got I'm an employed physician. I do online work, but I'm not doing private practice stuff right now because I'm been hammered. I'm run over. I'm like roadkill, buddy. It's awful, and it's okay. It's a gilded cage, as I tell my partner, right? It's okay. I'm not complaining by any means. Okay, I regard my position as being very, in a way, privileged, and that's okay. But it's like, how do I generate an institutional mechanism to help people? So one of the things we do is we donate money to a local missionary that runs a karate school. Okay, and I was thinking of doing the same thing with the purpose of it is to help people who want to train their body, right? And they're trying to train people's minds and get them oriented properly in the world. I think the same thing with the CrossFit is reasonable to do, which is like, how do you apply resources, and where's so where Mother Teresa, it's not like Mother Teresa has no money. She has very limited money, and she judiciously applies it to the situation.
Absolutely.
So it is like, what is the best way to help people to recognize the power of their own mind, and then figure out how to apply themselves, and then generate positive influence in their social organism, or their social environment, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, so what do you do on that? Do you do anything like that?
In regards to kind of like promoting other opportunities for people in the community, is that what you mean?
I don't know what I mean. I'm making this up. I'm like, because I'm like this. I'm talking to you because we're kind of like, this is a brainstorming little con thing that we've got going on here, and it's like, I'm interested in establishing institutions that are truly beneficial to the people for the purpose of generating better people, so that the people do better, and then they automatically, spontaneously amplify that signal into the general population. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like, you see some people, they're they're like just self-destructive monsters, man. And then they just banging around and generating chaos, like free radicals, right? And it's like, how do we slow that, like moderate that behavior down, and most efficiently put that in from our signal out into the environment, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's great. I think it's a great thought. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think I've thought of it that way at all, like to the point where you would say, how do I put my money behind an institution that may be beneficial for a larger group of people? Because we always think of it like, okay, well, there's some good martial arts studios in town. They're businesses, they're not nonprofits. And so you just support them and you refer people to them, and but I like the way that you're describing this, because it creates a different level of what's the word I'm looking for? It creates a different level of buy-in for you and for the people. It goes a level above referring a friend to that location. You're now kind of somebody that is invested in the success of that particular industry or location or group, or teacher, or whatever that might be. And what does that mean, and what is that line, and how do we create almost like a circle of contributors that can support each other in that way, whether it's financial or just informational or just referrals or support, but you kind of identify that, okay, martial arts is a high level of value for people's health. So I want to be a part of that. CrossFit is a high level of value for people's health. There may be some kind of like here, there are a lot of farm to table kind of, local farms that have small restaurants or farmers markets, and like they're not nonprofits. So, I never thought of, okay, let me just donate to them. I just want to support them and go and buy their vegetables, so
that's good too.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I like the way you're thinking of it, because it creates a different level of connection or kind of, investment in that, almost like a health circle.
That's right. That's right. This is this is a good point. We can bring in some more Hindu in there. So we got karma, which is you keep on doing the same mistake until you learn, right? And it will just be various iterations or variations on the theme, right? But it's the same slapping every time. You're getting slapped down every time you do the wrong thing until you get it right. Okay, so Dharma is like, how do you fulfill your destiny given your social circumstances, right? Mm-hmm. And like I say, consider myself to be privileged. And I'm like, how do I manifest that best outcome that I can be, right? And it is to go like this. And so to me, to talk to you about it now causes you to think about it differently, and you're resonating differently now because you're like this. It's like, doesn't matter more than that, right? Because it's like, just to cause you to become aware of the thought process, which is like this, is like, how do I put out there to create an influence that is lasting and then self-generating, right? Because you want to when you educate your clients or your patients or whatever you want to call them, right? You like, because it's like, really, I would rather you stay healthy and avoid me, okay? Because it's like, that will be better. But it's okay. I like fixing people is nice and it makes me feel good. But it's like, okay, I really would prefer if you build them up and make them stronger, and it's like in all dimensions, right? Yeah. And it's like, have that as if you have that attitude when you face the person, they'll sense it. Yeah. And it's like, and then you try to instill them with some like higher functioning here that they can take out there and then spread around their social, group, right? Yeah, I'm sure you're doing that already, but it's like it's a funny, like a thing to be conscious of as a way and a plan and moving forward, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think naturally, I think we get a little self-centered or myopic about it, because there's certain things that I know I can do that may be a contribution to our the people that we can influence. So we put together a certain nutrition program. Maybe it's not the most popular, but the people who do it, you see their entire families change sometimes. You
Right.
know, you know that it's kind of it's like a domino effect, right? Same thing with breath work. You know, breath work is so simple. It's one of those things that, but people don't know where to start, and they don't know, you know, that they should just do it. And so you teach one small technique, and sometimes that completely shifts somebody's sinusitis or somebody's,
Right.
you know, migraine headaches or something of that nature, or their insomnia. And so, you know, we're always looking at, okay, how can we put together, how can we contribute in the treatment room so that people, to your point, don't have to always just come back to be fixed, but they actually get some tools to take home, right? And so, but it's myopic. It's not looking at it through a cultural, it's not looking at it through a collective lens of a group of people trying to do this together, even though we're all out there. But it's more like, okay, you do yours, and you do yours, and you do yours, and you do yours. We'll do ours, and whoever we get in our web,
Right.
we'll try and help. But I think you're kind of referring to, even just in the donation component, there's an intention behind it that says, I'm your partner. I'm going to work with you on this. And that's a different thing. You know what I mean?
Right. So I don't like this. It's like it's like I think about this breath work, because breathing is funny, man.
Mm.
And it is like, it's funny because it's like, I had a patient just, and it is so integral to the way you feel, and it is so like done subconsciously, right?
Mm.
That it's like that is hugely powerful. And maybe there's a like I don't know, I never really looked for this online. Like, is there like breath work seminars or something like that?
Oh yeah, all over, you know, especially when it comes to you know, yoga studios do a lot of it, Tai Chi studios do a lot of that, where they'll have, you know, kind of mini seminars on breath work. Meditation groups often have a component of it. We teach it regularly, and it's, you know, some simple things that are out there. And I think that, you know, there's a book that came out a little while ago. I can't remember, called Breathe or Breath. I think it's called Breathe. And it's about all of the science behind nasal breathing,
Mm,
and slowing down your breath so that you are
yes,
breathing, you know, 5 to 6 times per minute,
yes,
and then increasing your exhalation so that your exhalation is double your inhalation.
yes.
You're actually taking less breath for your body to perform. And those three components, right, of being able to you know, manage the amount of breath that you need, the speed. It's like, it's not that hard, but you know, it is something that you have to kind of go like, is there something to that or not? But lots of science behind it now.
You know, it's like, it's a funny thing, because it's like, I ran a mountain yesterday, ran around the mountain, you know, and it's like, this is like, okay, it's just deranged breathing, and it's like just awful, right? Because you're like panicked, kind of like you're drowning, or, you know, like you think you need to move oxygen, you're not. It's like this, like aerobic training, right? They say aerobic training. I'm like, okay, the lung is like a rubber band, man. You can't make it any better. It's
Yeah.
just a rubber band. And it's like, well, what are you training? Well, I think you're training all the muscle, all the cage that's holding it, right? And it's like, yeah, you think operating that thing is easy. It's not. And that's what you're training when you're doing aerobic training. It's like, how do you effectively move your ribs around and your diaphragm and coordinate that behavior in an efficient enough manner while you're doing whatever it is you're doing. But it is like, it is so integral, because it's all the time. It's how you feel. And it's like, anxiety is related to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had a patient, he had a good reason to be anxious, and he just hiccups, right? So he's intractable hiccups. Like, wow, it's just, and I regard it as anxiety, right? So I think this is, the trick is I think to make something like that would be very useful, like because because how do you amplify the signal, right? We're in the digital age, man. It's got to be digital.
Yeah.
Like some kind of breath work thing. That's a suggestion, because I'm not properly trained. I don't know what to tell people.
Definitely. No, it's something that we are getting more and more into as a practice, because we just find it to be so beneficial for so many people to just consciously pay attention to their breath for even a few minutes a day. It has a huge impact, you know.
So I'm like this. It's like I'm gonna encourage you now. This is action. You know, I'm like, this is actionable, right? It's like, well, make a digital teaching platform.
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
okay?
sure. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know what that means exactly, but it's like, think about it, and then do it. And it might, I don't know what it'll look like on the other side, right? Like how that like what the public will see or something like that. But it's like that's basic stuff, right?
Yep.
Like when I was in massage therapy school, we studied hydrotherapy, and I thought that was great. That's something anybody can do. And it's like, you know, it's like this, but it's never taught anywhere. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Right? But it's like, this is the breath work is like, look, we know everybody's doing it. That's worth talking to.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'd like to see that. So it's like that. So it's like, what does it take to get it done, or to make some kind of, and it could be ongoing, like you keep on rolling out new little elements or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I hate giving you homework, man, but it's rude because it sounds rude.
It's on my list. It's on my list. You're just bringing it to the forefront again, which I love. And so no worries.
Oh, it's just encourage you on it, because it's like that. So that's a resource. You turn it into a digital thing. It's a resource that's now it's just like everywhere. It can be everywhere at the same time, right?
Yep, for sure.
Forever, man. It's like, that's awesome.
Love it.
No. So it's like this. So only thing I would ask is this: is like, figure out what it takes to get it done, right?
Yeah.
And you find guys like me who are like, well, yeah, you know, I'll throw in some to figure out how to crowdsource it or whatever. You know what I mean?
Sure.
To make it worth your trouble, because it's like, it's going to be your trouble.
Yeah.
It's work, right? And so it's like, okay, so the trick is like this. So you're like, if you get out of your own head and you get out of your own skin and you go, let's make a thing for the general public and make it worth my while to do it, and get the people to pay for it instead of me pay for the thing and then me profit for, you know what I mean? That's that like, it's like a smaller thinking. It slows you down.
Yes, I love it. This is great.
I don't know, man. I feel bad because I'm like giving you homework. It seems
I love homework. It forces me to take action, and I appreciate the push. It's no worries at all. This is great.
It's awesome. So it's like this. It's like, no, but I think that resonating at this functional level, which is like, what can I do, or who can I find that can do something that is functionally valuable to the public in this way? That's the game here.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's like, okay, you see somebody doing something or suggesting something that sounds like it's right to you, then you throw them a couple bones, and right.
Definitely love it.
Love it. Good, man.
I'll keep you posted on.
You're good, man. I appreciate that. There's something about accountability, right?
I love it. Yeah, that's great.
Shoot, man, I don't know. It's like that. So I look for that, because it's like, I just running around that mountain, you know, I had to stop because I was holding my arms up, right? Okay, so you know enough anatomy. So I'm like this. I'm holding my arms up and I'm running just like this. And it's the coracobrachialis on both sides, just dying. I'm like dead. I'm like, I just started running with my arms straight down like a zombie or something, because I'm like, man, it hurts so bad. I'm not stopping running, but it's like, that is not right. However I'm doing this is wrong. And I need to stop it. Yeah. But it's like, I know that's related to breathing, because it's how you're carrying this part.
Yeah. And
yeah,
there's a whole component of breathing while you run that has been, incredibly well. It's crazy how few people actually utilize it, but that the pace of your breath and the ability to breathe more through your nose while you're running actually can propel not only your speed, but also your endurance in a way that is, they've like massive jumps, not just
right.
Not just like, I went from running 3 miles a day to 3.5. But, no, big, huge jumps, people being able to go from, marathon to ultra marathon, or, those kinds of things that are out there. And anyway, yeah, I'm inspired. I'm gonna get it together for
So
you.
that I like this, so that it's like that's awesome, man. Because I'll look for it, and
Yeah.
well, I'm a buyer, man. I'm like, that's good. That's right on track, man. Sounds good. Find other people that are doing weird things and get them to make something that's useful.
Yeah, you got it.
Right. So then make sure I know about it, because that'll help.
Sounds great. We'll do. This is fantastic.
Shoot, Ryan, I want to thank you for showing up.
Oh man, it's a pleasure. I'm thrilled to be invited, and I'm thrilled to have the conversation with you. I mean, these kinds of conversations are the lifeblood, I think, of us as practitioners. I think it just, to be able to really creatively and just riff, and kind of have that back and forth and just interest in what we're doing is so valuable, and it's so inspiring to me. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you, sir. We'll chat again soon. How about that?
Sounds great.
All right. Talk to you later, okay?
Take care.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Best Medicine Podcast with Bradley H. Werrell, DO. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe below, either over there or over there. Also, if you're interested in a medical consultation with myself, there's also information below.